So our first speaker today is Joe Dwyer, who's going to talk to us about the economics of the maker movement. And hopefully PowerPoint works. Ready, rolling.
How's everybody doing today? Good.
Go, you're on.
I'm on, okay. So the economics of the maker movement is my talk. It's going to be three main things. One, everybody's a maker. Two, tech is getting cheaper. And three, we need to invest in social infrastructure. Who am I? I'm a maker. I'm a co-founder of Makerspaces, and I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm not an economist, so don't expect heavy economic theory. What is a maker? A maker takes tools, materials, and knowledge, combines them to make wonderful things. According to Atmel, they estimated more than 50% of the US population is makers. And I would say it's similar to this quote about artists, which is from Picasso. Basically, everyone starts out as an artist. Most people grow out of it, unfortunately, but hopefully the maker movement is reinvigorating a sense of everybody can be a maker, and that gives us agency, and it gives us a sense of empowerment. Makerspaces are popping up all around the world, and maker fairs as well. This beautiful building is in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's the third oldest subscription library. And why am I showing that? Because these people were wanting to share books, which was the YouTube of their age. They started their library 21 years after Philadelphia, which was the first library in the United States. And that came about from a group called the Leather Apron Club, co-founded by Ben Franklin. And these were just guys who wanted to get together, share their books and their knowledge to make themselves and their communities stronger. I recommend reading Bowling Alone, recommend reading Palaces for the People. Bowling Alone assesses the problem of people not being involved in their communities as much as they used to be. Palaces for the People is recommending a solution of investing in social infrastructure. Like I said, I'm not an economist, so I went through and tried to get a bunch of data. There isn't a ton of data out there about makers and what they spend their money on, but they definitely spend it on technology. And technology is getting cheaper. Computers, the one on the bottom is a Wi-Fi enabled Linux computer for $5. The problem from an economic standpoint is that hard assets are not getting cheaper at the same rate as the technology. So as you know, Make Magazine has recently laid off their workers. Tech Shop closed in 2017. Real estate costs are not getting cheaper at the same rate as Moore's Law is causing the technology to get cheaper. Open source hardware and open source software are not the same thing. It's a lot less expensive to duplicate bits and to distribute them than it is to duplicate atoms and distribute them. STEM education is where there's a lot of funding right now, and that's a wonderful thing. But the gap is so large that we're not making enough investment in STEM education or in social infrastructure. One comparison I would say is youth athletics. Everyone loves sports. It's a wonderful thing, but we're not investing anywhere near as much in STEM education as we do in sports, which for many people become kind of irrelevant after you graduate school. One positive example is where they're combining the competition of sports with STEM, and that's FIRST Robotics and other types of robotics competitions. There's a great movie, Slingshot, if you want to learn more about FIRST Robotics. Another thing about makerspaces is they don't benchmark themselves like businesses, and I think if we did that, we would be a lot more sustainable. So if we compared ourselves with a gym membership with a total revenue of $1.5 million a year, things would be a lot different about how we operate. Equipment costs. You know, a lot of makerspaces have 3D printers and they have laser cutters and CNC machines, but do you factor in the maintenance and repair costs associated with that? 3D printers is another example of tech getting cheaper. So first, there were just two 3D printing companies, Stratasys 3D Systems. Then MakerBot comes along and democratizes it. You can watch this documentary on Netflix to learn about it. Now there's like 150 hobbyist 3D printing companies, and all of the American 3D printing companies are trying to get out of the hobbyist market because they can't make enough money in it. What is a 3D printer worth? Well, it's not worth what you pay for it. It's worth what you can make with it. This is our Makerspace in Charleston. We're in a shopping mall. And so it's a great example of kind of the connection between consumers and makers in a building where we're bringing foot traffic in, which helps the stores. This is a economic survey, which I'm doing to try to get data on the different makerspaces. And I've got cards that are going to go around. If you will take the time to answer some of these questions, it'll help us have the data we need to understand what makerspaces need. Thank you.
Yeah.